edition of Pittsburgh Sportsline in the BPTV studio. I'm Al Levine, the talking machine. Chip Hayner's here. Smoking Jim Frazier. Wait. Oh, he didn't text me back. He's got a text-only phone. I called him and texted him. Didn't hear a word from Smoking Jim Frazier, but we'll do the show without him. Thanks for watching us only on Comcast 7 in Bethel Park. Thanks for watching us on Verizon 32 in Bethel Park and all the way from Nemacolin to Cranberry, Wexford, and all points in between. We appreciate you. Facebook, thanks for liking us. 6,868 likes. We appreciate that. And all our shows that are up every Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday night, 7 o'clock to 8. Thanks for watching those too. We appreciate it. I don't have any promos here. My car broke down, so I'm borrowing a car. But I can say that we thank Olive Oil's Pizzeria for the pizza and hoagie. They sponsor our show every week. Thanks to Frank Fanero. 412-831-1900. Hillcrest, right there at Hillcrest. People pass by and they go, "Where's this Olive Oil's Pizzeria? There's no sign." Well, the signs burn out, but don't worry. They're there and they're open. Give them a call, 412-831-1900. Excuse me. Then we always end each show with Stay Joey Strong. And we honor him each time, the Joey Fabus Childhood Cancer Foundation. They're a 501c3. Joey Fabus died before his 9th birthday with the dreaded brain cancer, DIPG. It killed him. And they've raised over $100,000 that they've donated to the doctors to find a cure for DIPG. Check out their events that are up all the time throughout the year. You can see it. We always film the 5K run and walk, and that's in September. You can do that. They have all kinds of different things, charity, foundation things, basketball games you can donate money to, and they got T-shirts for sale, so check them out. Another one that I always put up is the Bethel Park Historical Society Arts and History Center at 2600 South Park Road. You can't miss them. They have the red trolley right in front. The old trolley's there. They do all kind of great things. Bill Habather's in charge of it. They're a 501c3. You could go to their website, donate money, check out the different events and the business functions that they have and the support they do in the community. They're supposed to have a coffee shop starting up pretty soon there, so you'll be able to get fresh coffee every day, and they'll even have some of my green tea. So check that out. You can possibly get some green tea there too. And then we have Skeet Service Station. They sponsor What's on Your Mind. We always start each show with What's on Your Mind, and they sponsor us. And Skeet's phone number, you can give them a call. It's 724-348-4715. Give Skeets a call, and he works on anything and everything that runs on gas, and he sponsors What's on Your Mind. And I don't see Smoking Jim in the house. Zach or Jack, any word on Smoking Jim? Did he sneak in somehow? No sign of Smoking Jim whatsoever.
I just sent him a text.
So. We're going to start this show then with Chip Hayner. What's on your mind?
Well, thank you, Alan, and good evening, everybody. And what's on my mind is I look at what's been going on in professional sports a lot lately, and I see a lot of players getting released from their contracts. And I saw 2 players get signed to $300+ million contracts, and it makes me scratch my head in what is going on in professional sports. Because in one aspect, it seems like Major League Baseball has not been doling out the cash to the unrestricted free agents that
they've held back.
Yet, you set records with 2 contracts to the 2 highest priced free agents on the market.
Right.
You've got Bryce Harper, who signed the other day for $330 million over 13 years. Okay, $330 million, and then you had Manny Machado, who signed a $300 million 10-year contract with the San Diego Padres. And this is what my questions are. Okay, does this mean that these franchises are all in and they're trying to win it? Did they sell their soul to the devil? Are they gonna hurt themselves for the future?
Chip.
Because the Philadelphia Phillies should have learned their lesson after they won the World Series in 2008. Everybody that led that team to the World Series title, they signed to long-term, very high-priced contracts. And, look what happened to the Phillies franchise over the last 10 years. Last year was a resurgent year for them, but the previous 8 were all
terrible.
They were bottom dwellers. So, do you mortgage the future of the team for this win now mentality? I personally would not do it, and I'm glad to see the Pirates doing business the way they do it, because instead of investing their money into high-priced veterans on the major league level, they're investing their money into the minor league system. Because for a team like the Pittsburgh Pirates to be able to compete with these high-priced franchises that are out there willing to spend any money that they can, they have got to continue to develop young talent and bring them in. And it's apparent what they had worked on, what they said they were going to do, is starting to bear fruit now, because the Pirates going into spring training, they've got a team that looks like it might be ready to make a little bit of noise. They've got a young pitching staff. They got a bunch of young ball players that are up and coming that are playing for a big contract, instead of the type of players that have the big contract and take a few plays off. Maybe don't run ground balls. The one thing about the Manny Machado deal that makes me scratch my head, after seeing the disrespect he had for the game in the playoffs last year, when the Padres are out of the pennant race in June, how many ground balls is he going to run out? And
Not many.
And at 30,
Not many.
Yeah, and at $30 million, he better be running them all out. So there's that aspect. And then I look at the NFL. We've got the problem that we've had with Antonio Brown, which is well documented. And I am a very big proponent of saying that Antonio Brown was not completely at fault for the disaster that happened with the Steelers this year. He was an important part of it. I do believe that the starting quarterback that thinks he's a quarterback / owner of the team is part of the problem. I think the head coach is part of the problem. I also think the owner is part of the problem by being as hands-off as he was. So, now you've got a guy who is doing everything he can to hurt his credibility, and now he's making demands that it's going to make it harder and harder for the Steelers to deal him. So this is going to be an interesting scenario. We see what comes out of here. Because the Steelers, they want to get good value for Antonio Brown.
Sure.
And every time he opens his mouth, his value goes down. Who wants to bring a problem child onto their team that's under contract for 3 years, who's now talking about renegotiating? He wants guaranteed money.
Yeah.
He, and
what's he think? This is the NBA.
And this and that and the other thing. Well, here's what the thing is. He's under contract for 3 years. If the Steelers want to, they could tell him, you know what, you're either going to play for us for 3 years or you're not going to play for anybody. And if he becomes a problem, they just let him sit, pay him the money you owe him, and by the time he's available to be signed by another team, his career will be over. So, Antonio Brown needs to get his head out of his hind end, and if he truly does, want to leave Pittsburgh, he's got to prove to people that he's worth something. And then you've got Le'Veon Bell, okay, who is now an unrestricted free agent, okay. And if anything is proven out to be true with the NFL season is, well, the highest paid player on your team should not be your running back, because here's what the Rams did. They spent the most amount of money ever on a running back for Todd Gurley. How'd that work out for you, Rams? If my memory serves me correctly, he watched the Super Bowl from the sidelines because he's got a bum knee. Oh, goodness gracious. The one position in NFL football that has the shortest lifespan is running backs. And Gurley, who had major knee surgery a couple of years ago, now has been diagnosed with arthritis in that same knee. And he's locked into a big contract. It's going to hurt the Rams in the long run. And, I think it'll make teams more hesitant to want to sign Le'Veon Bell to the guaranteed money that he's going to demand, and I believe he's going to demand more than he's worth. And right now, the best suitor for him, I believe, on the horizon is the New York Jets, even though there has been talk that John Gruden wants Antonio Brown and Le'Veon Bell on his team next year. But, well, if what John Gruden did last year is an indicator of, he's not the John Gruden of 10 years ago. But you ask me what's on my mind, what is going on with all these professional sports and all these contracts?
Money.
Yeah,
money.
That's the truth.
Thanks, Chip. Appreciate it. What's on my mind is I'm a big Penguin fan, but I'm disgruntled with their inconsistent play. They lose, then they win, and look good in a win, then they look bad in a loss. And thank you, Chip. Not too bad. They won the other night up in Montreal, and who knows? Maybe they can build on that. They're playing tonight. I just have my doubts. They're not consistent. Now, they talked about resting Murray. Here he's played 5 games in a row now. And so, obviously, he can play. He may not be an upper echelon goaltender because he's been hurt so much, but he's a big-time goaltender because he did win 2 cups. So, it's just a lot of frustration watching the Penguins this year because they either have it or they don't. And it's frustrating.
And to speak to that, the first back-to-back games he played Friday night, and then Saturday, Murray played consecutive games.
Yes.
Lost one, won one. But,
yeah,
he's
able to. Well, as long as he's healthy right now,
well,
he can do it.
Well,
right now, the season's winding down. What do we got? 19 games left,
or 18
games.
Yeah. Well, when we get to our Penguin talk, we'll
talk that,
little into more depth.
But that's what's on my mind because I believe in the Penguins. I've said they could be in the, playoffs this year, and right now they're not. So we'll talk about later on the end of the show. But we're going to come back to Chip's trivia time.
All right, everybody. So last week I was talking about, with Major League Baseball, I was talking about the number of strikeouts and the pitchers that had the most. So I'm stuck on this batting thing, and I do want to give you a tease for next week. This year marks the 100th anniversary of the Black Sox scandal.
Yeah.
And it being that was 100 years ago, and a lot of people have heard about it,
right,
but don't really know the details about it, next week,
we're
going to talk the Black Sox. But that being said,
I can't wait.
I'm going to talk about career batting averages and the best hitters of all time.
Whoa.
And the best hitters in baseball as we speak, at the conclusion of the 2018 season. So, you talk about the all-time batting leaders in Major League Baseball.
Sure.
And Ted Williams once commented about those that fail only 7 times out of 10 attempts will be the greatest in the game. He was right, and the list below reflects these career great hitters. Important notes: 1,000 career games played and at-bats are needed to make this list. Raw averages are presented to further clarify the 1,000th career batting averages of all time, and bold-faced entry denotes players that are active during the previous Major League season.
All right.
Now, that being said, one of the greatest hitters that ever played the game, there's a quote attributed to him, and he's in the Hall of Fame. And he said, "I don't like to sound egotistical, but every time I stepped up to the plate with a bat in my hands, I couldn't help but feel sorry for the pitcher."
Wow.
And that was no less of a great than the Rogers Hornsby. Rogers Hornsby is the second greatest hitter in the history of baseball. And his career batting average was .358.
Wow.
Number one, and by more than just a little bit, would have been no less than Ty Cobb. Ty Cobb with a 366 batting average and over 4,000 hits in his career. Now, I know if my dear friend Jim was here, that nasty four-letter word would come out of his mouth, Pete Rose. And Pete Rose, had he not played baseball for 364 years, he may have never reached 4,000 hits. But just to give you an idea of where he stands amongst the all-time greatest hitters, he barely made the top 150.
Wow.
So you think
So
that,
much for that.
yeah, so you think he was a little punch and Judy hitter. And I'm going to go down through probably the first 10 or so. Some of these names you should recognize. Some of them make you scratch your head. But the top hitters in the history of the game starts with Ty Cobb. Next up would be Rogers Hornsby. The reason I brought up the 1919 Black Sox scandal, because the number 3 on the list with the third highest batting average for his career, Shoeless Joe Jackson. In 13 seasons, he had a 356 batting average.
Wow.
Number 4, Ed Delahaney, who was 346 average.
Never heard of him.
Tris Speaker, 345.
Heard of him.
Ted Williams,
Heard of him.
344, the Splendid Splinter. And actually, Ted Williams was 344, 41. 41. And number 5 was Billy Hamilton with 344, 29. Okay, so there's where the thousands of boys, but we're split. Next up, number 8 on the list, none other than George Herman Ruth, the Babe. So not only was he the greatest home run hitter in the history of the game in the first 100 years, let's just put it that way, he was one of the best hitters just all around. He didn't just, swing for home runs.
Or just strike out.
Yeah.
He did a lot of strikeouts.
Well, he struck out his fair share.
He wasn't afraid to strike out.
But there are some of these guys on here that struck out less than a dozen times in a season. And, that's pretty amazing. After Babe Ruth, Henry Heilman. Number 9, number 10, Pete Browning. And number 11, I like to mention this guy, Wee Willie Keeler.
Yeah.
Wee Willie Keeler, who was attributed with the quote, how are you successful at bat? Just hit them where they ain't.
What was his average?
Wee Willie Keeler, 341.29.
Wow.
Followed by Bill Terry, George Sisler, Lou Gehrig, Nap LaJoie, and somebody that most of us should have seen play baseball at number 17, Tony Gwynn.
Wow.
On the all-time list. Stan Musial's tied at number 25. There was a brother combination that played for the Pirates, Paul and Lloyd Wainer. Big and Little Poison. Paul Wainer was number 22, and I believe Lloyd Wainer was in this list as well. He's in the top, I believe he's in the top 75. I'd have to look through it, and I don't want to waste your time doing it. But get down to some people that say, one of the greatest hitters ever. Well, you get all the way down to number 149, and there you see Pete Rose, who's just slightly ahead of Mike Greenwell with a 303 batting average. And he did manage to bat over 300 for his career. And then just to give an idea of what happens to steroid cheats and the reason why they don't belong in the Hall of Fame, I got to go all the way down to number 198 to find Mr. Barry Bonds. And Barry Bonds' career batting average was 298.
198.
298.
298.
298. And some people say...
No, I meant for number 198 on the list.
So some people say he was the greatest hitter they ever saw. Well...
What were they looking at?
Statistics prove otherwise, and isn't baseball a statistics-driven game?
Yeah.
So that gets me to, Ted Williams said, somebody that only fails 7 times out of 10 will be considered an all-time great. So we use that as a measuring stick as to, major leagues. There are only 10 active Major League Baseball players that have a career batting average of over 300.
Really?
Of all of the players, that you figure 40-man roster, times 30 teams.
1,200.
1,200 players. There's 10 of them that are career 300 batting
I'm
averages.
shocked by that.
Okay, and I'll give you a rundown of who they are. Number 1 would be Miguel Cabrera for the Detroit Lions, or the Detroit Tigers, my bad.
Yeah.
He's played 16 years, he's 35 years old, batting average 316. Hits 316.5. Jose Altuve, who plays for the Houston Astros, 316.4.
How many years is that for him?
8 years in the league. He's 28 years old.
Yeah.
Next up would be Ichiro Suzuki, 18 years in the majors, 44 years of age, 311.1. Next up, a guy who I always thought would look great in a Pirates uniform, and I get to watch him play probably half a dozen times a year. And, I just hate to see him come to bat against the Pirates because he's so good in the batter's box. First baseman for the Cincinnati Reds, Joey Votto.
Yeah.
Joey Votto's career batting average, 310.8. And the one thing I have always said about Joey Votto when I watch him play, and he's a student in the batter's box. He doesn't swing at a pitch that's out of the strike zone. And
very consistent.
And when an ump rings him up on a strike 3, in most cases that ball is just off the plate. But that's part of the game. Number 5, who many consider to be the best player in baseball, Mike Trout of the Los Angeles Angels, 26 years old, 306.7 average. Next up, on the West Coast as well, Buster Posey. 10 years for the San Francisco Giants, catcher, 306. Number 7, Robinson Cano, 14 years in, 35 years old, with a 304.5 average. And that was after his steroid suspension last year. I had to throw that in there. Number 8, Charlie Blackmon. I believe he does play for the Colorado Rockies. 302.4. Albert Pujols, 18 years in the league, 38 years old, with a 302.3 average. And number 10, Dustin Pedroia, 13 years in the league, 34 years of age, and his batting average is at 300.
Wow.
So, those are the list of guys that...
that's it.
That's it. Those are the 10 players in Major League Baseball right now that have career 300 averages. Now, I was, of course, I was looking for other names that I recognized. Number 30, much beloved former Pittsburgh Pirate, Andrew McCutchen, 287 batting average. Starling Marte, tied at number 32 with a 285.7 average. Then I go down to some of the big-ticket free agents. Manny Machado, number 42. Career batting average, 282. Former Pirate Josh Harrison, 277.4, number 50 on the list. And then I can't forget the highest paid player in the game, Bryce Harper, 278.9.
Wow.
And and he gets the big $330 million contract. But it's just interesting how, over time, hitters haven't gotten better. And I don't necessarily think that pitchers are better now because, you had pitchers in the olden days. I think Cy Young had over 700 complete games.
Yeah.
And I don't think that there's been 700 complete games pitched in this century. Okay? It's just, it's really odd. The game has changed in that aspect. But it seems that, the players are the home run hitters. They're the ones that get paid. But, baseball has always been about consistency.
Yeah.
And the players that consistently hit 300 year in and year out do more to help their team than somebody that strikes out 220 times and might hit 35 or 40 home runs.
Yeah.
So there you go. That's my trivia for this week. Next week, folks, the Black Sox scandal.
I can't wait for that. Give me a little peek. All right. Thanks, Chip.
Break.
On location, 930 Brookline Boulevard next Monday. That is March 11th. We got a great show for you. I can tell you some of the guests. We got the two Ukrainian fighters who are both champions. They have ABF belts. One is Oleg Dovkin, and the other is Lubomir Pinchkin. And we have Mike McSorley, their manager, trainer, cut man, you name it. Even put on a great event at the Priory Hotel.
They both win those titles on Saturday night?
Lubomir held a defense of his title, and Oleg won his title for the first time. So I'm going to see if they can bring their belts to the show. We have another boxer, a lady boxer, Becca Main, gold medal boxing, where champions are made, they always say, and she'll be there. She's won a couple Golden Gloves fights, and she's going to try to go to nationals and potentially the Olympics. Let me think who else. We got another guy, Zaf Motion. He has this mortgage company. He's a big sports fan, and I met him and his sister, who does the Arnold Classic every year and is on the radio for 12 million people, Sarah Mosen. And Zaf is going to be on there talking about his love of sports, and we'll cover a lot of interesting sports topics with him. His parents are Bangladesh diplomats. I could barely say that. From Bangladesh. So it'll be a very interesting time. Great guests. Come on out, 7:30 to 8:30. Frank Fanera has a great list of food and run some specials so you can eat, listen to sports, engage with us there, and enjoy the show. Come on out again. That's next Monday, March 11th, 7:30 to 8:30. We'll be on location, and look for future locations coming up after that too. We've got some different announcements to make on that. And we'll be back talking some Penguins. Welcome back. Thanks for not switching that dial. We're going to be talking about the roller coaster of the Pittsburgh Penguins season.
Yeah.
Wins, losses, streaks of both.
Yeah.
Who should be goaltender, who shouldn't, who's hurt, who's not, who's back on the ice.
Fortunately, Dumoulin and Letang are not going to be playing yet, but they are close to returning.
Yeah.
Letang, and, you got to tip your hat to Chris Letang. There's a guy who had neck surgery. He thought his career was going to be over. But the minute his teammate got his head bounced off the glass, he went after the guy, and he ended up sustaining a neck injury. I don't know to what degree. Obviously, not too terrible, because he was standing up for his teammate, and that's what you want. I mean, you definitely, your teammates need to know that you got their back. And, just because I'm a big star doesn't mean it didn't matter. Dumoulin got racked and
he got concussed.
And Dumoulin, in the defense of Wayne Simmons, who was the gentleman that hit him, he did not target his head. What happened was he was hit and his head banged off the glass. And they said because they were playing outside, the glass was not as flexible as it is when it's inside.
Wow.
And it was harder, and apparently it was just a slight bit harder than his head. And he's been on but he's skating with the team now.
Yeah.
He's in a non-contact jersey. So the way the concussion protocol goes is you got to go through several practices and still show no signs.
Right.
So who knows how that's going to go? But apparently our top two defensemen are on the mend and they're trending in the right direction.
They'll be back. They'll be back shortly.
The thing I think that needs to be talked about, I mean, sure, we could go on and on about the Penguins' inconsistency, like, they play well for a period and they fall down. They've lost so many games late this year.
Yes.
They did that Friday night. They lost.
It reminds me of the Steelers.
Yeah, they lost the lead. And Saturday, they came out against the Montreal Canadiens and they jumped on them in the first period. Yeah. And they stayed on them the whole game, and had it not been for a goal late, that would have been a shutout for Matt Murray. So, what team's going to show up against the Florida Panthers tonight? It
knows?
remains to be seen. But the one thing that has been consistent about the Penguins through all of their inconsistency is Sidney Crosby is very quietly, I think, putting together an MVP caliber performance this year. And simply because he's Sidney Crosby, he may not get the award because, there's a player for the Capitals, I think his name's Kucherov or something like that, who's been doing very well for them. But, I think the thing that diminishes his accomplishments this year is look at the team that he's playing on. Would that team, it's still a playoff caliber team even without him.
Yeah.
So you look at where would the Penguins be without the performance of Sid Crosby. Last week he had, I think he had 3 goals and 8 assists.
Yeah.
And was the third,
he was a third star in the league.
For the league. And he's been on a tear lately. And he's proving once again why he is the best player in the league. And here's an interesting thing. They polled 198 current NHL players, and they asked them who unequivocally is the best player in the league. And without any question of a doubt, 48% of the vote went in with Sid Crosby as the best player in the league. And he does it quietly because it's not that he does one. You got a player like Alex Ovechkin.
Goals.
He's a one-trick pony. He's a goal scorer, period. Sidney Crosby gives you 200 feet of ice. He can do it all. He can kill penalties. He can do the forecheck. He just does it all. Now, one of the more disturbing things this year has been the lack of production out of Evgeny Malkin, but more so, it's been almost 2 months that Phil Kessel has not scored a goal.
Right.
And Phil Kessel is not being paid to not score goals.
Right.
About the last few games that he's played, he started
he's shooting
getting more shots.
Yeah.
Well, that would help to solve that problem. The pucks are going to start going in. But for the Penguins to even make a run to make the playoffs, and that is still questionable at this point, they need Malkin to step up, and they need Phil Kessel because it's pretty obvious Sid can't do it all himself.
Right.
So the line that Crosby's on right now with Jake Gensel.
Yeah.
I mean, they're just unbelievable. Getzel's has just scored his 30th goal.
What a
first time 30 goal scorer, and but I mean, that was like anybody that skated on Mario Lemieux's wing back in the day. They became 40 and 50 goals. Yeah, he banked 50 pucks off his forehead.
Yeah.
And turned him into a
all-star.
Turned him into an all-star. Warren Young, remember Warren Young?
Yeah, I do remember him.
Warren Young was another example.
Boom, bang, right off the puck.
The Penguins, they dug themselves a hole, and if their inconsistency still continues, they may be on the outside looking in because there's a lot of hungry teams that are trying to make
They need the winning streak. That's what they need. They need the winning streak.
And
let Murray play. He's our best goaltender. Let him play.
Yeah, well, the winning streak, it started on Saturday in Montreal, has to continue tonight against Florida. And before we are off the air this evening, we'll give you an update on the score. But, consistent.
One more thing. Matt Cullen's 1,500th game.
Yes.
42 years old.
42 years old.
1,500th game.
1,500th game. And you wonder.
He's one of 20 players to do it, they say.
That's incredible.
Unbelievable.
That is incredible.
And he plays like he's 32.
Oh, and by the way, our dear friend Jim Frazier, who's conspicuous by his absence today, his favorite Pittsburgh Penguin of all time just got passed on the career goals list by Sidney Crosby.
Whoa.
Jaromir Jagr is now number 3 in Penguins history on goals scored, with Mario Lemieux being first, Sid Crosby strong in
taking
second
his rightful place.
Yeah, and that's where he belongs.
Jagr had a great career and a long career. Who would have thought he'd play that long?
He's still probably playing in Russia trying to pay off his gambling debts.
Hey, if they're willing to pay him.
He reminds me of somebody we know.
Yeah.
Loves to gamble, doesn't know how to do it very well.
If you're going to bet, don't start. If you're going to make a bet, do the opposite of smoking Jim Frazier.
Yeah,
it's not a new catchphrase.
Isn't that truth? Isn't that the truth?
Penguins, I'm just hopeful, Chip. I wish them the best. They got some talent.
They have too much.
Haven't put it together.
They have too much talent for them to have to scramble for a playoff spot.
Yeah.
And that being said, I think one of the things that if the Penguins end up taking the 8th spot in the Eastern Conference for the playoffs, they may end up playing Washington in the first round.
Wow.
And I don't think Washington wants to meet the Penguins.
No. Not if they get in like that.
Well, the history between those two teams, the scales are still tipped in the Penguins' favor, even though last year year was the Capitals' year. They finally broke through, and they
worked hard to do it.
They killed the demon.
Yeah. No, they actually played well and did it. No doubt about it. What do you got for Bucco talk?
What do I got for Bucco talk?
They're showing inconsistencies too.
Well, not so much. I mean, they're at 500 for the spring, which the record means nothing because come March.
Well, Smokin' Jim declared they were going to win the Grapefruit League.
No, Smokin' Jim.
What's he know?
Yeah, you know what? Here, next time we see Jim, let's ask him what's the difference between the Grapefruit League and the Cactus League, and I bet you he doesn't know the answer.
I understand.
But anyhow, Pirates today, they came up big. They pounded the Orioles 10-4. Josh Bell hit a big 3-run homer.
We need that.
Good reports out of him this spring. What he did over the winter was he got himself bigger and stronger, and they say he is more athletic this year than he has ever been.
Yeah.
So I love the fact that a young man saw the way he performed last year, and it wasn't
hard.
up to the year before. And you know what? Tightened his belt and went
let me weigh 26 home runs, 12 home runs.
Yeah.
That's why they're talking about his lack of defense abilities.
Well, and you know what? He's young enough. And, one of the things that I really liked and what I've been reading a lot about is the Pirates' new hitting coach and his thought process on
philosophy.
Hitting. And I'll tell you what, I like what he's saying, and he has broken down everybody and analyzed things. And I think, a fresh set of eyes, I honestly feel that if they would have just kept the previous hitting coach and what's his name, Branson?
Yeah.
And just keep doing the same things and expecting a different result wasn't going to happen. I was glad to see that the Pirates decided, hey, not to say that he was a bad guy, but you know what? Maybe the message was being lost on the players.
Sure.
Bringing a fresh set of eyes, a new approach, and hopefully we're going to see some turnarounds on some players, see some consistency out of Starling Marte. And I'm looking forward to see if Gregory Polanco can return at the level that he was at.
I want to see him back before the end of May.
Well,
I heard he's coming back early.
Well, here's what I would rather see him back. I would, if it means holding him out till June to make sure you got him back and healthy and you'll have him for the rest of the year, I would hate to see him come back too soon and lose out on him. We do have some pieces. We've got Chisenhall. We've got Melky Cabrera. We've got some other pieces that can help to boost the outfield. You got Corey Dickerson in left field, Gold Glove winner. You got Starling Marte, a 2-time Gold Glover winner, playing left, and he's playing center.
Yeah.
Got a lot of ground to cover. So pitching wise, I love the approach that the Pirates are taking with their starting pitching staff. They started out at spring training, and they named their top 4 starters.
Yeah.
So these 4 young men now know what their roles are, and they can prepare for the season. Today was Chris Archer's first appearance in a game. They've been working hard, but what they're able to do by not getting into game situations is they're able to work on various pitches and try to work on mastering them. Because here's what happens, and I read this, and this came out of the pitcher's mouths. When they get on the mound and they're facing another team, all of a sudden your competitive juices take over, and you want to compete.
Yeah.
And so instead of working on the pitches that you want to, you're trying to get batters out. Okay, so they were able to get some work done. Chris Archer, first appearance in spring training games today, 2 innings pitched, 4 strikeouts, no runs. Felipe Vasquez got put on the bench today. Nothing wrong with his arm. He had an upper respiratory infection. He had one appearance on Saturday against the Yankees, pitched 1 inning, 2 strikeouts. The Felipe Vasquez that we expect to see. Yeah. Jameson Taillon will be getting his first spring training start. But I think it's really good that they're giving the pitchers a chance to work on the things that they need to work on.
Sure.
Before you get them in. These guys, they've all pitched last year. They know what they're getting. They only need about 3 or 4 starts against live batting to be ready for the
I just hope
season.
they're healthy and they perform up to as well as they did last year. Trevor Williams, the second half was unbelievable.
He was he was unhittable, and I think you're going to see a much different Chris Archer, because as Chris Archer got a little more comfortable, we saw a better pitching Chris Archer in September than we did in August.
Yeah.
Okay, so also
he has the skills.
He has the skills. He also had a hernia surgery over the winter, and Joe Musgrove had a core injury as well.
Right, and he had looked pretty good when he was pitching. So
Joe Musgrove, I love so much about him. Somebody hits one of our batters, he reminds me of A.J. Burnett.
Yeah,
he's the guy that's going to plug somebody in the ribs.
Guess what? It's coming right at you.
Yeah, and. You watched him try to break up double plays last year.
Yeah,
And I just
he's a competitor.
I love that.
Yeah,
I love that. So
well, it's a mindset, and you talked about it when Garrett Cole and McCutchen were gone. Maybe they'll play more as a team, and they did, and they've held that true, and they believe that. So it makes a difference.
And I will never badmouth anything that Andrew McCutchen did or what he represents. Not ever. I think he resurrected baseball in Pittsburgh when he came up in 2009. It was magical to watch what happened. I've been a season ticket holder now. This is my 8th season, and in 2012 was the first year as my season ticket package. But watching in 2011 the way he was playing. Yeah. And the enthusiasm, and then watching the transformation of that team from the beginning of 2013 all the way through the wild card victory against the Cincinnati was really something special. But those days have gone by, and they've passed. Okay, and
what are we going to do now? Is what we
and what the Pirates have done is, instead of following the advice of people on talk radio, instead of blowing up the thing and starting from scratch, the Pirates had a couple of down years. But now they're in a position to be competitive.
Sure.
And I tell you this, you talk about the Cubs and the money they spend. You talk about the Cardinals and the money they spend. You talk about the Brewers and the money they spend. And you want to know something? The team with the best record against the Central Division last year was the Pittsburgh Pirates.
Sure.
Okay?
Yeah.
So, are we capable of competing with the higher priced teams? We are, because it's not dependent upon how much you get paid. It's dependent on how you perform on the field.
Sure.
And that's what the focus should be on this year. And I've got tickets for the opener, and I'm very much looking forward. I'm hoping for a day between 40 and 50 degrees.
Maybe the sun will be out.
35-degree days for home opener. I will sit through it, but it's not really...
It's not as fun.
No, not as fun. And especially, I go to the games with my wife, and I always say, when the boss gets cold, I'm going home.
She's cold to start that game. You got to watch.
But she hangs out. She hangs out longer than most. So.
Well, I give the Pirates a lot of credit, because you look at the teams like the Marlins, small market team that had a World Series they bought. Then they break up the team. Then they went World Series again. Then they break up the team.
And then
what do you do 8 to 10 years when they don't?
No, they had a team.
And then they
had Marcell Ozuna. They had Christian Yelich. They had Giancarlo Stanton, which was arguably the best outfield baseball.
Sold him off.
They sold him off before they could win. Okay? Yeah. Why was that? Because they couldn't continue to afford to pay them once they paid Giancarlo Stanton $350 million.
Well, they got Jeter as the partner.
Here's the interesting thing. The Players Association sued Major League Baseball and specifically mentioned 4 teams that were not spending enough money to be competitive, is what they said.
Yeah.
And the 4 teams that they named in their suit was the Oakland A's, the Pittsburgh Pirates, the
I forget that list.
but anyhow, 3 of the 4 teams. 2 of them won more than 90 games. One of them won 97. One of them won 90 games, and the Pirates won 82 games. So where they said, where the correlation between, to me, you're over 500, that's a successful season. Now, there's only going to be one team that's really ultra successful every year,
right.
Whoever wins the World Series. Not everybody can win it. But,
right.
I just, my focus all year is going to be on baseball, on the field. I'm not going to talk about salaries. I'm done with it. I've had it. Anybody that wants to sit there and bellyache to me about the salaries and the amount of, don't waste your breath, because if you come around me talking that, I'm sure I will abuse you, and that's just fair warning.
Well, I'm an old-time fan like that. When I grew up, I wanted to see good teams on the field, and we did have them in the 70s. And
the 60s and 70s was a golden era.
We had a lot of good teams out there. I never worried who the owner was. I didn't care whether he made money or lost money.
I didn't really know. I mean, I knew at one time Bing Crosby was part owner of the Pirates.
I had heard that. And Galbraith, who owned horses, owned the Pirates at one time. So I remember hearing that, but it didn't bother me.
No.
So what?
So what? The only thing that matters to me...
I don't care about bottom line Bob. It doesn't bother me. He can be bottom line Bob forever.
Here's what the bottom line is. As long as he continues to make money, there's going to be a Major League Baseball team in PNC Park, and I will continue to support them.
Yeah.
And people
put
can
out some competitors and let's play baseball.
That's it, man. You think about it, Alan. You're in my generation, and we're very close in age. When we were children, there was one game in town, and that was the Pittsburgh Pirates. The Pittsburgh Steelers stunk so bad that nobody would go to the games. Okay, and it wasn't until 1969, 1970, 71 that the Steelers started gaining some interest. And then for the Immaculate Reception, the first playoff game ever in Steelers history, it was not even a sellout. And that was the last game that wasn't a sellout.
Right.
So, we had a baseball team in town. The Penguins didn't exist. We fell in love with the Pirates. The Pirates have been around since 1887.
Yeah.
And,
there's a tradition there.
Yeah, there is. And now, we've become spoiled because we're so used to winning championships.
Sure.
Okay? And, maybe we're a little bit more critical. There are people that would give their right arm to have one of our teams to root for.
Cities, that would love
Now, the Pirates did go through 20 years of losing, but you want to know something? If you look back through the history of the Pirates, there were a lot of dry spells.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of Hall of Fame players on those teams that had dry spells, So, you can say what you want. I mean, if you truly love the game,
you'll enjoy the game.
The Pirates will definitely bring it.
And it's a great ballpark to watch a game in.
So the other morning, we had a snow delay. I didn't have to go into work until a little later.
Whoa!
And I flipped on the NFL Network.
Okay,
because I just can't stand Kelly Ripa and all these other talk shows, right? I have never seen. I mean, I've watched mold grow on cheese in a refrigerator.
Really?
And it was more exciting than watching it was defensive backs day, and there's most of the defensive backs performed poorly in the speed drills because they did the 40-yard dash, and then in the skill drills, they performed I think a lot of guys went from number 1 draft picks down to the 2nd or 3rd round just by their performance on.
It was that bad?
It was bad. But here's an interesting thing. Speaking of the NFL Combine, because that was going on this weekend.
They sensationalized.
And and Jim is not here, and I'm sure he would have his opinions. But you got the draft coming up, but starting, I believe, next Wednesday, or is it Thursday, that free agency starts. And teams are starting to designate who's going to be the...
I think next Wednesday it starts, the 13th.
Okay, so they're starting to determine who's going to be franchised, who's going to get transition tagged, and who's getting released. And there's a lot of quality football players being released right now. 2 of them from the Baltimore Ravens.
Yeah.
C.J. Mosley, great linebacker, and Eric Weddle, who was a great, strong safety who the Steelers were in on before he signed with Baltimore. So The help that the Steelers need
Could be available.
could be available, and I believe the Steelers have a little bit of money to spend for the money they saved from Le'Veon Bell from last year.
Yeah.
So, is this going to be the year that the Steelers are going to sign some
Well,
free
aren't they
agents
supposed to
that
announce a new cap? Like it's going to be 188
No, it's
million?
100. I think it's 188.4 this year.
Yeah.
It went up a little over $11 million
Yeah.
from last year.
No, I had heard that. So
There's
some money there.
The Steelers have not generally dove into the free agent pool, but would that be so much of a mistake? Because, here's one thing that I know the Steelers have always built their teams through the draft, and I agree with that to a degree, but a high draft pick does not necessarily guarantee a success.
No.
Artie Burns is a perfect example.
Yeah.
Okay?
Is he still on the team?
Well, as far as we know, but so there's some things going on. And what are the Steelers going to get in compensation for Lev Bell? What are they going to get in compensation for Antonio Brown?
Third round.
That remains to be seen.
Maybe a third round pick.
The
way he keeps talking, he won't shut up.
You know what? If he wants to play football, he needs to either shut up or learn to start playing in the black and gold again.
And we need the control room to tell us how close are we to ending this show.
Pretty close.
We got to be down within a minute or so.
Yep, down at 2.
Down to 2. Thank you very much.
Right now, the Penguins score update. Florida's up 1-0 first period.
That's all right. We'll get them in a second. We're dynamite in that second period.
Yeah, well, you know what?
That's one of our better periods.
60-minute game.
We don't play 60 minutes.
Well, that's probably part of the problem. That's why
That is the problem.
That's why we're looking to see, can we make it in?
No, well, they're down right now. I'm going to be going home to watch that game. I'll be rooting them in. Thank you, and I expect to see some goals by the Penguins. They do have the offense, and I don't want to see that power shortage again.
No, we need to see Phil Kessel start
Hornquist throw in one.
throwing some pucks in the net. We got to have Evgeny Malkin's take control of a couple of games, and Sid he can
just do what you do, Sid.
Sid, just keep doing what you're doing. You're a great example for what the way the game should be played. So. That's my bit, Alan. I guess I'm handing it off to you to wrap it up.
We're going to wrap this show up. Thank you all for watching us on this show without Smoking Jim Frazier. I know you miss his humor and his betting talk, but you're not going to hear it this week. Like I said, if you don't bet, don't start. And if you do bet, do the opposite of Smoking Jim. This is Chip Hayner and I, Al Levine, the Talking Machine. Please stay Joey strong.